not done anything that other people from other zones have not done. We know about Sunday Igboho, of the Yoruba nation agitator. We know of the Boko Haram people that say they want a different country where Western education is an abomination. These people have been released. Not just that they have been released. In the case of Boko Haram, they've been re-assimilated to the society, given plum jobs, even in our military. They've been given money and been resuscitated, reconciled, and rehabilitated. Why is Nnamdi Kanu's case different? There is an ethnic and some unnecessary bias that is keeping that man in jail. The government should be wise enough to release this man. You can use the Julian Assange option. If you don't want to say you are losing face, you can release him conditionally. You can release him unconditionally. As a lawyer, I've watched the legal issues very clearly. And I saw that even in the courts, from the High Court to the Supreme Court, there are discordant tones amongst them. Even in the issue of bail, some of the tier of the courts are granted him bail. Even in the issue of the charges, some tier of the court had quashed all the charges. So you can see that the government has a lot of places it can stand to release the young man and bring peace to the southeast. He is now more like a political prisoner. I tell you something. The longer Nnamdi Kanu is in prison, the taller he becomes. And the shorter the government.
Continued illegal detention of Nnamdi Kanu, an act of ethnic bias. Kenneth Okonkwo. Over the course of time, the continuous illegal detention of the IPOB leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu by the Nigerian authorities had plunged the southeast region into a state of monumental chaos. These chaos, evidently sponsored by the same government. A human rights lawyer and Nigerian politician, Kenneth Okonkwo, decorously demonstrated his concern over the outlawed inhumane treatment being meted on the IPOB leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, pointing at his continued detention as an act of ethnic bias. While speaking on Arise News, he emphasized on the state's pardon on the popular Yoruba nation agitator Sunday Igboho, as well as the internationally outlawed terror group Boko Haram members, whose ideology stands against the Western or a secular society. They had even been reconciled, resuscitated, and re-assimilated into the society, the Nigerian army and police, he said. Stretching on the grounds of his release, he gave some recommended options on how Kanu could be released, citing risks of Nigeria's dilapidated reputation on the course of illegally detaining him. The Nigerian government, after recognizing the plights of Kanu by 2015, had subjected him to the same fate of illegal detention. Kanu had faced unlawful trials and has endured several tortures from the Nigerian Secret Security Service, SS. The case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has been referred to as a political persecution. Kenneth Okonkwo recounted the 4 several court rulings that had ordered the unconditional release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. The appellate courts has ruled that all 15 baseless count charges against Kanu were quashed, Nnamdi Kanu discharged and acquitted. Nigerian government has violated its own laws and disobeyed its own court orders just to persecute Nnamdi Kanu. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu had been cited as a political prisoner and a prisoner of conscience, as the United Nations Group on Arbitrary Detention had released statements in 2022 demanding his unconditional release. He is undergoing persecution, not prosecution, and his popularity and heroic reputation grows taller as each of his days languishes in the Nigerian DSS dungeon. Kenneth Okonkwo stated that the more Kanu is being detained illegally, the more he gains power and influence. To the old Easterners of Nigeria, Kanu is the hope of the common man. He represents the collective marginalized and oppressed Biafra people. A British citizen, abandoned by the British government to languish in prison for committing no crime known to law. His only crime is demanding for the self-determination of his people, which is contained in the United Nations Charter of Fundamental Human Rights. International communities are obliged to intervene in the case of Kanu, and preserve the inalienable human rights to freedom and self-determination. It is not a crime for one to determine his fate of nationhood, and the world must stand up to upholding this right. As Martin Luther King says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The rights of Kanu and all the persecuted Biafra people must be protected. Stay tuned for more updates.
Hey, Okome. Akalaka madino ngwero mfiche. Akalaka madino ngwero mfiche. Ugo chuku tuwele made viche niyo. Nnamdi